this is Vivica Williams, and you're watching Head to Head. In 2018, Ukrainians continued to protect their borders in the face of Russian aggression. And the United States, as an important ally, remains steadfast in its support for Ukraine's sovereignty. To discuss the scenarios for future relations between the U.S. and Ukraine in a military scope in 2019, we're joined in the studio today by Maksym Iali, expert on international relations and senior research fellow at the Institute of World History of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. Maksym, hello, and thank you for coming to see us today. Let's start with talking about the U.S.'s assistance in military. So what's been the scope so far?
So far, as you know, usually it's about, in general, $300–400 million. Javelins, as you know, last year was the most serious and biggest support, and now is, if to talk about future nearest perspectives, I guess we should expect two ships finally, Coast Guard, I mean, so William Perry to come, but in the nearest months.
So in last year, we know the relationship has mostly been when it comes to defensive training, technical assistance.
Exactly.
And the Javelins were much sought after, and it was very nice to have.
Yeah.
And now the look is switching to more offensive, so lethal weapons.
So lethal weapons, as I told you, we've been expecting it, this assistance for years, right? Before we got it, and especially when we needed it most of all, I mean in 2014, 2015, we didn't. President Obama denied to give us lethal weapons, but I would say thanks mostly to already ex-minister, Secretary of Defense James Mattis, we received Javelins. Though, if to take into account the amount of them and that we cannot use them on the front line, it's, I would say, also has more symbolic meaning than in practice. I hope we shall not use them, but definitely it increased our capabilities.
As you say, it can be like people use or consider nuclear weapons in a sense. You have maybe it's
nuclear.
No. As people consider nuclear weapons, you have that kind of a deterrent war, and with the Javelins. But this year, Ukraine is hoping to receive more lethal weapons from the U.S., and there's been a lot of discussion that that's maybe in the works for this coming year.
Well, of course, I'm sure the discussions and negotiations are going on, and they started, as I told you, 4–5 already years ago, but we should take into account that we're going to have elections in the end of March. But I would say even more serious factor is that already 2020 campaign for Mr. Trump is launching, right? Already, I would say he has launched, taken into account the latest news. So, I mean, also we should take into account that there is a new Secretary for Defense,
right,
instead of James Mattis, who I would say doesn't have serious background and especially concerning Ukraine. So, taking into account all these factors, as I have already mentioned at the very beginning, the biggest thing in the nearest months, in the nearest half a year, I would say, we can really think of is that two used ships.
Right.
That's it.
And so tell us some more about these. These are considered island-class ships.
Right, exactly.
Tell us a little bit more about the ships and what their capabilities are and where they would mostly be used for.
Well, as you know, usually, and the American side, they say that they want to strengthen our capabilities in the Sea of Azov. But the problem is that the Sea of Azov is not so deep, to put it mildly. It's the biggest, it's 14 meters, but in medium, just the depth is about 8 meters. So they do not fit from the technical point of view to the Sea of Azov. So therefore, it could strengthen, and taking into account that we lost a big part of our ships in 2014, and still we didn't have serious possibilities. It would anyway strengthen our capabilities, but in the Black Sea, definitely not in the Sea of Azov.
Well, and maybe perhaps the use as escort ships could be useful for the smaller, lighter crafts that can travel.
Also, you know, the problem is I just consider it this issue from different points of view. You know, you need to invest to every ship, 2 of them, right? I guess about $50 million to the because they have nothing. Actually, I mean, no rockets, no missiles, etc., etc.
They're going to need a lot of investment, a lot of outfitting.
Yeah, indeed. So that's why actually we are dragging time, so to say, because you know this proposition was made to us a long time ago, and now only after the aggression of Russia in the Black Sea and the Kerch Strait, the American Congress additionally gave us $10 million just necessary to bring them from US to Ukraine. And I guess that's what we really can see in the nearest months before the elections. That's it, because usually from the political point of view, political factors play the most important role. During the election period, we shall not, and usually countries, governments do not give serious assistance, I mean lethal weapons.
Right, it's an attempt to keep pre-election ways to try to keep, not make some
and
type of
a lot
major
will
thing.
depend who will win the elections and how the things gonna be. I mean, Trump, Mueller's case, etc., etc. So there are too many factors which, as I have already mentioned, in 2014-15, when we needed desperately this assistance, we didn't. We were not given it, right? And now, when there is no so serious situation, I mean, on the front line, people still dying, but not hundreds as it used to be in 2015 and winter in 2014. So there are no serious reasons, I would say, because for Donald Trump, most of all, to give such assistance.
So, and also the thought that Ukraine has lost 3 additional ships. I mean, we talk a lot about this,
Small
the
ships,
20, right,
right,
the 24 sailors. But in addition to the 24 sailors, it was the loss of these 3 ships as well, which, yeah, again, another loss, another to the Ukrainian Navy that's in.
Half of it, I would say we lost half of, I mean, Sea of Azov,
annexation. Right.
So the question is?
Well, the question is this replacement, I mean, this is an issue. As you were saying, these island-class ships will not replace this.
Well, they will not, because I told you they do not fit to the Sea of Azov from the technical point of view.
Right. So what is Ukraine looking at then in other ways in strengthening its navy and its ability to move and work within the Azov Sea?
Well, you see, the point is that we have, I mean, Ukraine has all the possibilities to develop our own, right, with, I mean, facilities, right, to build ships and of much more serious class, which would really increase our not even independence, but defense capabilities, right? So the thing that we are lack of is money, and if US is not ready to give concrete, right? I mean, ships, lethal weapons, etc., etc. If they increased money assistance for us to develop by ourselves, it would be okay. But we don't see neither.
Mm-hmm. And Ukraine in the last years has had the military-industrial complex has been working significantly. There's been an increase in the number of tanks, new helicopters being produced, and
helicopters, haven't heard actually.
Well, But in general, the production in armament that's being produced, as well as even going to be tested this year, has significantly increased. So the investment, you're saying that Ukraine could really benefit even more so from investment in its military-industrial complex if weaponry is not going to be delivered from...
Well, you know, I can give you as an example, right? When, as you know, we were waiting, just, I can't say begging, but asking US for so long to give us Javelins.
Right.
But when advisors or military officials came to Ukraine and saw our capabilities, they said, okay, you can produce just maybe not as good, not as sufficient missiles as Javelins, but still different kind of missiles which could protect and increase your capabilities much more. So that's already a question maybe to our government. We do have some successes, right? Testings lately, Alha missiles, very good, but indeed I would say we could have done much more.
Mm-hmm. With more assistance in that way. And so, and last question, what are you seeing for the upcoming year, for 2019, and the development of Ukraine's defense capabilities and offensive as well?
Well, I told you, we are going to have 2 election campaigns, and I would say future development, not only of our defense capabilities, will depend on it. But I would say the future of Ukraine. So during this period, usually, if to take into account experience not only in Ukraine, right? Even one campaign is enough when all the processes are not stopped, but at least slowed down. So I guess we shouldn't expect any breakthrough, and moreover, a lot will depend who will win the elections. And as you know, it's unlike Russia, where everything was understandable and predicted long time before the elections. I mean, the last year presidential campaign, right. We do differ, and still there is nobody can guess who will win. We have different options, I would say, and depending who will win, then we will see the concrete results. But taking into account even of our experience for the last 5 years, I don't think that the same dynamics we have, there won't be any serious breakthrough, unfortunately, from my point of view.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us today to bring us some of this insight.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And that was Maksym Iali, expert on international relations and senior research fellow at the Institute of World History of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. Thank you for joining us, and can stay tuned with UATV for more.